This week I've got 2 different animated sequels, and I'm going to start with How to Train Your Dragon 3, basically. So How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World. This is one of the few series that I've actually just really been looking forward to the finale of, and I've been waiting patiently, as many people have for years. And I'm like, no, I actually care what happens to... Well, I actually care what happens to Toothless. I cannot stand Jay Baruchel as the voice of Hiccup, but... I tolerate him through these movies. I have such a soft spot for these movies. I love the Toothless animation. Anytime that dragon does anything, right? Anytime he does one of those, like, silly smiles with no teeth. Anytime he does, like, I'm sure you've seen the trailers, or if you've seen the trailers, you've seen this moment 1,000 times where he does the, like, hopping dance that's basically a bird mating call from... I just love it. I love all the dragon behavior, that they're like cats and dogs rolled into one, and some of them are owls, and some of the... It's so charming. And so... I hadn't seen the other ones in a while, and then I actually watched them on a plane leading into this. I was like, yeah, these are actually really good. So I had some expectations for this one, and I have to say, I think it met them. I was so pleasantly surprised. I think the weakest point in the Dragons movies are the villains. So this time around, F. Murray Abraham plays a character called Grimmel, who is basically, it's F. Murray Abraham with a Dracula impression. All the other voices are back. America Ferrera is Astrid. Cate Blanchett is Valka the mom. Kit Harrington is Eric, son of Eric. Craig Ferguson, Jonah Hill, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, Kristen Wiig, who is not back, is T.J. Miller. And there was a weird decision to kind of highlight each of the side characters for a bit in the movie, and I'm like, why are we highlighting the voice you replaced? It seems like you'd want to kind of just downplay that and be like, yeah, nothing's changed. So anyway, if you've seen the trailers, this won't be a spoiler. If not mild, this is spoilers. There's a lady Fury this time. She's a light Fury, and so it's about their courtship. It's about Jay Baruchel's Hiccup growing up. It's about F. Murray Abraham's character attacking them, because there always has to be some sort of generic baddie who wants to attack them and doesn't want peace between dragons and men, and that part is definitely the weakest part, as I said. The other weaker parts, again, the human acting, probably. Don't really care. Just want to see the dragons do their thing. And I won't go into the story too much because it is a relatively A to B straightforward plot, but it was enjoyable. Again, I would literally watch hours and hours and hours of just the dragons interacting. So the fact that I have to sit through the humans to get through it is okay. They are tolerable. I think this puts a very nice little end cap on the trilogy. I sincerely hope they don't try and like bleed more life out of this and be like, surprise, it made money, we're doing How to Train Your Dragon 4. I think it's a very good like book ending. I think people will be pretty satisfied with it. I think it's worth watching the other 2 leading into this. I had forgotten again, and then I had to rewatch them. I was like, oh yeah, also I just really like these movies. And I think it's worth checking out. And it is cool to see the kind of progression and maturity of the digital characters, at least. They do a really good job of being like, yeah, no, this looks like this much time has passed. So How to Train Your Dragon 3, totally worth seeing if you like the first 2. Really enjoyed it. I'm going to give it 4 out of 5. The other movie I had this week is the Lego Movie 2, and I think the original Lego Movie was one of the most pleasant surprises for me. I was not expecting it. It was so funny. I will still rewatch it to this. I think it is so brilliant. It had jokes for adults, it had jokes for kids, and I actually think Lego Batman movie is probably one of the better sequels. I did not love Ninjago. I liked it, but I didn't love it, and so when they came back around to Lego Movie 2, I was like, okay, I still have pretty high expectations for this because I do rewatch the Lego Movie every once in a while. Not quite met, but not a bad effort. The voice cast is back, so you're going to get Chris Pratt as Emmett, Elizabeth Banks as Wildstyle, Will Arnett is Lego Batman again, Stephanie Beatriz, Alison Brie, and Nick Offerman, Charlie Day. Tiffany Haddish joins. I will say, this movie basically picks up right where the last one left off, so it does kind of require you to have seen the Lego Movie. I'm not 100% sure who would be going to see the Lego Movie 2 without having seen the Lego Movie, but if you're, let's say, a parent who hadn't seen the first one and your kid is now old enough to see the second one, you might want to consider watching the Lego Movie. Also, because I think it's better than the Lego Movie 2. So, picks up right where we left off. Then we fast forward a couple years in the future. There's this fun Mad Max dystopian vibe. They did a couple things in this one that I didn't love. There's a lot more musical numbers, but it's with the characters singing, which isn't really what happened in the last one, aside from everything is awesome. Tiffany Haddish has like this whole big long sequence. She plays... I don't want to call this a spoiler because it really is so base to the thing, but basically, you know, you've got the Little Sisters toys, which are kind of these pink, girly, quote, which I'm like, no, they don't have to be, Legos and other toys, and then you've got, you know, our original cast of Legos, and so Tiffany Haddish plays the queen of the Sisters toys. She has these sequences, and then there's like a Chris Pratt, there are 2 Chris Pratt voices in this movie. He plays Emmett Burkowski, of course, our hero from the first one, and Rex Dangervest, who we meet in this one, and I'm just like, too much Chris Pratt. How much royalty does he make double the royalty when he does this? And I don't know if it serves to advance the story necessarily. In fact, it got like a little bit confusing what they were trying to accomplish, but it's also a Lego movie, so you're just gonna go with it. there were times when Batman has a very prominent role in this one, and I'm like, are we trying to basically like be like, hey, don't forget about Batman because we probably got another sequel coming, give us your money? It didn't necessarily feel like it needed to be Batman. I didn't get anything extra out of the Batman stuff in this one. I do love Batman jokes, but at a certain point it became a little too referential to like real life Batman. So I'm like, this was better served in the Lego Batman movie. The stuff I do like, there are still plenty of hilarious jokes that I think only adults will get. You know, there's jokes about intellectual property. Because there's nothing funnier, of course, than intellectual property. Actually, seriously, all credit to Warner Brothers for licensing all of these properties. You'll notice, I think in this one, they didn't want to pay for a lot of the like other franchises, and so you'll see mostly like WB-owned things, which if you're like a, I don't know, movie legal nerd, you'll be like, oh, I see why they did this. But I digress. I think what I enjoyed the most out of this movie, aside from the sort of weird one-off nerdy jokes, was I thought they did a really nice job of ultimately distilling down like the relationship between siblings and how it's just like, hey, I want to play with you, and that these Legos are basically an allegory for the relationship, the age difference between siblings. And this, I was like, oh, the problem was it all just came wrapped up at the very end. And I will say, tiniest of spoilers, but not. Maya Rudolph plays the mom, because if you'll remember in the original Lego movie, we actually see like the people, and the dad is Will Ferrell, and then you see the kids, and so Maya Rudolph's mom. I love Maya Rudolph. And weird not cameo, but another nerdy movie moment for you. The sister, who seems very grown up in this, is played by Brooklyn Prince, who was in the Florida Project and was like an itty bitty little girl in that, and now she's this like grown ass woman. Not actually, but she just I was astounded when I looked at the cast list. I was like, oh my god, she got so old. There are plenty of other cameos. There are great voice actors in this. There are great actors in this. Like Jason Momoa gets to play Aquaman, which I'm sure he's super stoked about. Richard Ayoade is an ice cream cone. Noel Fielding, you know, if you're a fan of British comedy, the two of them are great. Jimmy O Yang's in it. Ray Fiennes is back as Alfred, which is funny because of Voldemort's in the first one. Overall, I thought it was a decent Lego movie. It's nowhere near the original. I don't even know if it kind of even compares to Lego Batman movie for me, because at least Lego Batman movie kind of went back to the beginning, or it had its own established storyline, didn't require you to have seen the other two. And I will say, for both How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World, and Lego Movie 2, again, these are sequels that expect you to have seen the first. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. How to Train Your Dragon, I think, did a better job of being like, here's a recap. Lego Movie 2, just watch the first one, I guess, right before you go into it. And it's one of the movies where I'm like, yeah, no, I don't have a problem with suggesting that to people. Still really enjoyed it. I'm going to give it 3.8 out of 5.